cameras are pointed at your door, your life is 24/7 live show? What is China doing? Let's get started. I'm an expat from China, and these couple of days I ran into this article. So from the title, you may be thinking, oh my goodness, now everywhere in China, everybody's got their cameras installed that are pointing at their doorway. What are they doing? Also in this article, it said that people were actually very upset and said that it was actually going against their privacy. Some people are quoted that this camera was installed without warning, without any approval or anything from them. Also, some people say that there's no national law that is regulating installment of these cameras. So what actually happened? I have a story here. Me and my wife, when we returned in the early February from Indonesia back to China, we had to undergo a really good line of measurements. We had to take our temperature measures. Everybody in line, even though they were, coming from some places are safe, some places are not really safe, anybody with a high temperature would have to go to the hospital. So I was like, yeah, that's good. After they took our temperature, we had to go and register on this health app of Beijing. And in the article, it said, this app is tracking everybody's location, and that's really tough on privacy. But it's not really completely true, because while the app knows where you've been for past 14 days, but only the city, if you're in China, and only the country if you were outside, in order to make sure that these 14 days, whether you've been in Beijing or not, if you've been, then you don't have to go through a quarantine. If you're coming from abroad, then you have to go on the self-quarantine, which made really good sense to me. So talking about the self-quarantine, me and my wife, we had to go home and do the 14-day self-quarantine without leaving. And yes, you guessed right, we survived. Me, my wife, we all made it. Also, what's really interesting, and I'm talking about this article, is that the camera was actually installed pointing right at our door. But the big difference is that before the installment, people actually came to our apartment explaining that, the camera is being installed in order to make sure that within these 14 days that you're not allowed to leave the apartment, this camera will be shooting the hallway to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. And after that, the camera will be taken away. So I was like, oh yeah, so what is the problem with a camera shooting 24/7 the emptiness? I'm not gonna be leaving the house, and I'm sure my neighbors were probably okay. So in order to make sure, I actually made a video about that.
像我们这个楼里面，比如说安置摄像头啊，包括测体温，你觉得这些都怎么样啊？
都好，非常严密，非常严格。
因为疫情期间，很有必要安置一些摄像头啊，什么测体温了，这是很有必要。
Throughout the quarantine time, I thought it's gonna be like, oh my gosh, I'm not able to leave. What about my food? What about the water? I'm gonna be crazy. The whole organization is actually organized by the volunteers from our compound. They were able to get our fruits and veggies, and they would send it to our door. We could open the door and get the food. And every day we had to send our message to the local compound WeChat or Facebook group that made sure that we're healthy and fine. And if something went wrong, they knew instant, so they could call, the hospital or anything that we needed. So after 14 days, the camera got demolished. And yes, some people say, well, there's no national law regulating the camera installment. You may say that, but sometimes we just need to use our common sense. They're using these cameras, and there was the regulation that was, in the press, so everybody knew about it, and it was not eroding the privacy. We were still sitting at home. I don't think these cameras are really bad, and I really feel sad and sorry for so many people abroad in other countries just failing to keep the regulations of their countries. I wish that you would comply, and I'm sure that would help to fight this COVID-19.